Today I'm going to give you some tips about setting up your interview lighting. Interview lighting setups can be a little complicated, so I'm going to break it down for you step by step. The first thing you want to do is assess your space. Is there a lot of natural light in the space? You want to work with it. Or is there no natural light and all artificial lighting? You're going to want to bring in a lot of your own. The next thing to think about when you look at the space is the size of it. How much equipment can you fit into that room? That is definitely a consideration you're going to want to make as soon as you see the space that you're shooting in. The next thing you want to do is find your angles. Believe it or not, you actually want the subject to be as far away from the background behind them as possible. That'll make the background kind of blur out and fall away and make sure your subject is the star of your shot. After that, you want to set up your camera as far away from the subject as the room will allow. That way you can zoom in and further blur out that background. Now, if you're in a really, really tight space, here's a hack for you. Set up your camera in the adjacent hallway. Shoot through the doorway. That'll give you more space between you and the subject and allow you to bring the subject forward and blur out that background even more. Next, you want to decide if your subject is going to be sitting or standing. Standing is great if you want a really wide shot. In this particular shot, we shot it really wide because the video was actually about the space that this guy is in. So we zoomed out really wide and we have him standing and it looks great. But if you think you're going to be tighter on your subject, I would definitely recommend having them sit because they'll be able to wiggle around less and you won't have to worry about them like moving out of the frame. Now, if you want a particular piece of art showing behind someone in your shot, you might not want them sitting in a traditional height chair. You may need to bring them up to a counter height or a bar height stool, or use what's available. In this shot here, this gentleman is actually sitting on his desk. You can't tell, but it brings him to the perfect height for the background. Okay, finally, let's actually now get to the light. The most traditional lighting setup is a 3-point lighting design. In this 3-point light setup, you have the key light, which is the main light lighting your subject's face. The second light is what's called the fill light, and this could be as bright as the key light or dialed down lower depending on how moody you want your shot to look. And the third light in a traditional 3-point light setup is the hair light. This lights the person's head and shoulders and really helps them pop off the background. So that's the traditional configuration of a 3-point light setup, but you can make modifications to that if you need to. So sometimes you might have your 3-point light setup perfect, but then the background looks dark. In that case, you might want to take a 4th light and light up that background off from the side. And if you're in that situation where you have a dark background, but you do only have 3 lights, you can work around that as well. So set up your key light and your hair light, and then take that fill light and use that to light up the background. And then take a reflector like this one and use this as your fill. So you're bouncing the light from your key light onto your subject's face from the side. It's a more subtle lighting look anyway, but it definitely works. Another option is if you're in a room with a lot of natural light, you can use that natural light as a hair light, fill light, or key light, depending on how you orient your subject. Hey guys, before we go any further, if you feel like you're learning something from this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. So now that you understand the basic lighting setup, let me give you a few tips that will help you along the way in different situations. So if you're in a situation where it's really important to see what's outside of a window, I would expose your camera for the windows so you can see what's going on out there, and then set up your lights to match that exposure. You're really gonna have to blast your subject with a lot of light, but that is how I would approach that situation. Another thing you want to think about is whether or not there's overhead lighting in, let's say, an office space. Overhead lighting is so unflattering. I would definitely turn those lights off and bring in your own lighting in that situation. Overhead lighting casts really ugly shadows on someone's face, under the nose, maybe in the divots under the eyes. Nobody looks good with that overhead lighting. I would just do away with it entirely. My next tip for you is to make sure you have uniform color temperatures throughout your shot, unless you're going for a more stylized look. Traditionally, you want all of your color temperatures to be the same. So my tip for you is to get bi-color LED lights like these, where you can dial the light temperature to be either warmer to match, like, I don't know, a lamp, or cooler to match daylight that might be coming in through a window. So you can really control your artificial lighting and match the existing lighting in your space. And then what you want to do is white balance to make sure that the color temperature in your shot is matched for whatever lightscape you have going on. My last tip for you is to really think about the context of your video project when it comes to lighting. Compare this white, bright interview about this real estate project in Miami with this interview about the Nuremberg trials. It's a lot warmer and more subdued. So remember, lighting isn't just supposed to be flattering. It really can help you tell your story. If you want more tech tips about video production, I have a whole playlist for you. I'm going to link to it right here. You guys, thank you so much for watching. Give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again.